Good morning. As usual, I'm waiting for the little wheel to tell me that we're on. I guess we're on. Welcome to a further installment in the officially last chapter of uh, Love Magic. It's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. And this is will be part 3 and part 4 of the exorcism of Our Lady of Sorrows. Again, I'd like to remind those of you who have registered for the Goetia workshop tonight on Zoom to pay special attention. It would be very nice if you'd listen to this morning's segment, because it'll make or it might make tonight's workshop even more significant for you. So here we are, part 3. We're at the preliminary evocation. And as usual, there's an epigram. And this is from Crowley's Liber Astarte. For his robe, hath he not a night dress? For his instrument, a walking stick? For his suffumigation, a burning match? For his libation, a glass of water? And I've got a footnote there. And this is about the consecration of the instruments. The magician consecrates each of his or her magical tools in a separate ceremony that takes the object through a series of steps that largely mirror the landmarks of ritual initiation. The object is treated as a candidate. It is banished, purified, and charged with its specific duty, then anointed with the holy oil and dedicated exclusively for magical purposes. All items I use to evoke spirits, no matter how simple or improvised they may be, have been so consecrated. I'm afraid the following description of my hurriedly composed and extempore evocation of the demon Slug will be somewhat of a disappointment to magicians and would-be magicians who are enraptured by the glamour of the elaborate trappings of the ancient art of evocation. I assure you that in the last 35 years, I have on many occasions taken great pains to adorn myself with the most proper vestments, arm myself with the most proper weapons, and erect the most proper pieces of temple furniture, including a most proper circle and triangle festooned with the most proper names and words of power. The essence of the structure is hardwired in my psyche, and I dare say I could construct the essential setup in my dreams. Now that I think about it, I have occasionally done just that. For this working, however, I needed to operate quickly and under extraordinary conditions. My working area and weapons, by necessity, needed to be Spartan and portable. Remember, I was going to evoke the spirit at home and transport the entire temple, the circle, the triangle, the spirit, and everything to the school and reset it up there. These are the consecrated magical items I used on this occasion. A wand of almond wood, 17 inches in length. A silken cord, approximately 11 feet long. When the ends are tied together and laid on the floor, it forms a circle, approximately 3.5 feet in diameter. And to tell you the truth, I got that same circle right here. Very impressive, huh? The next tool is a carpenter's segmented ruler, which when its segments are fully extended and then folded into 3 equal parts forms a perfect triangle of 22 inches per side, just like this. Come on, come on. I'll show you. I'll show you how it's done. Oh, there's a profile picture right, right there. A copper medallion with a chain bearing the seal of Slug on the front and a pentagram of Solomon on the back. That particular one I cannot show you, but here is a general one I do on other occasions. There's the seal of the Spirit, in this case Andromalius, and on the other side the pentagram. A post-it note. Oh, excuse me. Right. A post-it note with the image of the seal of Slug within a triangle. A clip-on juror's badge I once accidentally wore home from jury duty. There it is. You can, and that has the hexagram of Solomon on it. There you can see that it was part of my juror's badge. But anyway, it's very handy, and I thought quite appropriate. To this ill-gotten prize, I glued a paper image of the hexagram of Solomon. The hexagram is clipped to my robe to display to the spirit that I have made an unbreakable link with the macrocosmic deity, and that I'm operating under the auspices of the Most High. For the evocation ceremony itself, I wore a purple yarmulke on my head and my plain black robe, over which I hung my bishop's stole, a long wide band of richly embroidered material that hangs around the back of the neck and falls over the front of my body. My stole displays on its wide red and gold bands images of the Greek cross, the eye in the triangle, and the descending dove of the Holy Grail. Later, for the exorcism at the school, I would wear the yarmulke and stole over my street clothes, black slacks, white dress shirt, and a plain black tie. I quickly cleared a space on the floor of my office, itself a Herculean labor akin to that of the cleaning of the Augean stables. I banished and purified the temple pretty much as I described in chapter 6. I unfolded and arranged the carpenter's rule to form a triangle and placed it on the floor. I put the post-it notepad bearing the sigil of the Spirit in the center of the triangle. Please remember that the image of the post-it note also contains a triangle within which the sigil is drawn. And in case you forgot, that's what it looked like. I placed a stick of burning incense in a small burner in the triangle next to the sigil. I tied together the ends of the silk cord and arranged it on the floor to form a crude circle. My temple was ready. I sat down in the circle, wand in hand. I took a moment to gaze into the triangle at the yellow post-it note sigil of Slug. Eventually, everything looked comically serene. The demon sigil resting there next to the stick of burning incense, its tiny red coal politely spitting up an undulating serpent of smoke. I closed my eyes and proceeded to mentally chant my Ganesha mantra and visualize the cosmic banishing and invoking dance that I described in chapter 11. As always, the exercise did its magic. In just a few moments, I was infinitely centered. I opened my eyes with the realization that contrary to all appearances, there was no outside of myself, that I was one and the same with the great G. Once thus firmly connected with the above, I proceeded to connect with the below. I aimed my wand directly at the spirit sigil and conjured Slug into the triangle. Most modern Solomonic magicians use the Lesser Key of Solomon as their guidebook and script for evoking spirits. It's filled with page after page of addresses and conjurations, curses and greater curses designed to cajole, threaten, or otherwise terrorize an unwilling spirit into the triangle. I believe, however, that these hypnotic and rambling speeches do not really serve to bamboozle the spirit into the triangle, but rather are designed to bamboozle the magician into confidently believing he or she has full authority and power and the ability to do it. That afternoon, my conjuration was extremely loud and very, very brief. Slug, come! I was oddly awakened by the sound of my own words. It was though I had commanded every dog in the universe to sit, and they had no choice but to obey. It must have been pretty loud because a bird that had been minding its own business outside my office window was startled into flight. The sound of its fluttering wings instantly summoned into the triangle of my mind's eye the image of a huge Norwegian magpie. Again, I was surprised to the point of distraction. I've seen these marvelous birds many times on my visits to Norway and England. They are most audacious and mischievous. They are more audacious and mischievous than crows or ravens, and because of their thieving habits and reputation for eating the eggs and babies of other birds, are held in superstitious awe by many European cultures. In England, the appearance of a single magpie is an omen of great evil and can only be warded off by respectfully saluting the solitary bird. "I am here," it squawked. "I salute you," I answered. Such conversational exchanges with demons are difficult to describe because the answers from the spirit enter the mind of the magician on the same brain waves that carry the questions. The bird cocked its head to the side and dipped a quick bow of acknowledgement. I held up the copper medallion and showed the spirit its sigil. "Do you see this?" "I see it." "What is it?" My mark, it answered coldly. I turned the medallion around and showed Slug the pentagram of Solomon. Do you see this? I see it. What is it? The mark that binds me. I held up the juror's badge with the hexagram of Solomon glued to it. Do you see this? I see it. What is it? The mark that binds you, it said sarcastically. These answers satisfied me. It was now time to put the operation on ice. You will remain in the triangle. I will visit you again soon. Do you understand? I understand. Swear it. Then, as much as a talking bird can, it cleared its throat and said, I swear I will remain in the triangle. Without further conversation or ceremony, I stood up within the circle, removed my yarmulke and stole. I stripped off my robe. I then carefully gathered around me the silken cord of my circle, wrapped it tightly around my naked body, and tied it securely in place. I would not take off the medallion or leave this circle until the exorcism was accomplished. Now, I know that was a little too short to stop there, so I'm going to go on with part 4, if you don't mind. It's called The Interview with Sister Martha, and its epigram is from Nikos Kazantzakis. Well, anyway, the guy that wrote Last Temptation of Christ. Kazankakis. The doors of heaven and hell are adjacent and identical. I quickly dressed, concealing my silken magic circle and medallion under a clean white shirt and black tie. I jotted down a few notes in my magical diary, including a hastily composed oath, and I threw it in my briefcase along with a few other items necessary for a traveling exorcism. My almond wand, wrapped in its red silken satin bag, my yarmulke, my bishop's stole, a vial of oil of abramelin, a yellow post-it notepad with the sigil of Slug, permanently trapped in its own little triangle, a flask of holy water. You know, I make my own holy water. Back in chapter 6, I said how I did that. 2 fresh votive candles and a glass candle holder, 2 cigarette lighters, 6 sprigs of fresh rosemary clipped from our backyard herb garden, and the lid to a medium-sized saucepan. Mark arrived to pick me up, and soon the DuQuette Brothers Traveling Exorcist show was on the road to Our Lady of Sorrows High School. It was early in the evening, and the campus was closed when we pulled up to the towering Spanish wrought iron gate. Mark pushed the security button and announced our presence to the voice in the black box. Just as if in a proper Gothic horror movie, the gates groaned open and we drove through. Really, it happened just like that. Sister Martha stood outside the door on the side of the main building and indicated where we should park. She was a rather small woman in her mid-40s, wearing a black skirt and a simple gray suit jacket over a white blouse. I was disappointed she was not decked out in full medieval drag. Still, if I were asked to pick out the nun in a room full of women, she'd have been my choice. After introductions, Sister Martha gave us a brief tour of the building, pointing out the locations of various supernatural manifestations as we went along. We spent several minutes in the classroom that witnessed the death of young Sister Catherine, and the tour ended in the faculty lounge and the administrative staff area. The lounge seemed innocuous enough, but I was immediately disturbed by the layout of the staff area, which was reminiscent of the nightmare set designs of early German expressionist films. It was an asymmetrical and chaotic maze of misshapen cubicles, completely devoid of clean right angles or unobstructed lines of sight. The office of the vice principal was the only enclosed office. Its large windows provided a perfect overview of the panorama of chaos. I am by no means an expert on feng shui, but I couldn't help but think this entire area was surely a serious impediment to any kind of energy flow. A severe case of qi constipation if I ever saw one. The whole scene would have been comical had it not been so overpoweringly claustrophobic and suffocating. The area was only accessible by one door that opened into the hallway. Just standing there made me gasp for air and want to run away. But it was here that Sister Martha lingered as she related the details of the specific tragedies and misfortunes that had recently befallen the poor souls who labored there for their daily bread, trapped in that warped little trapezoidal hell. She had, in fact, prepared a one-sheet dossier complete with the name, age, picture, job title, and the sad details of each victim's particular affliction, accident, or tragedy, which she clipped to the hanging inbox attached outside to each victim's door or cubicle. For instance, and I just give sort of a little example of what she had arranged for each of the victims, like Jane Doe, 34, accountant, and a picture. Fractured arm while recovering from breast surgery. Office formerly occupied by Janet Doe, who perished with baby in car fire. Mark and I were very impressed. Before she left us to do our work, we sat down for a few minutes in her office to chat. She told us that she'd been busy all afternoon arranging the school's memorial service for Sister Catherine. She was visibly upset and very tired. She told us we would have access to the entire building up to 6 a.m. when people would start arriving for the next school day. There would be only one other person in the building during the night, Larry, the IT man, who did his computer duties at night. She rang Larry in his office and asked him to please come to her office. When he appeared, Sister Martha introduced him to Mark and me and told him that we would be in the building for several hours during the night doing, quote, some work for her, adding that we had her permission to go anywhere in the building and that he was not to disturb us. Larry was a gaunt man, perhaps 40 years old, in jeans and a dark gray t-shirt. He seemed a bit high-strung, and I got the clear impression that he viewed us with suspicion. "What kind of work?" Larry asked nervously. "Nothing to do with your computers, Larry. They won't be disturbing you," Sister Martha quickly interjected before either Mark and I could respond. Larry didn't appear satisfied with Sister Martha's answer. He looked at Mark and me as if he hoped we would offer more information. When none was forthcoming, he stammered, "Well, I'll be backing up the system all night, so if they want to look at..." "They'll not be working with the computers, Larry," said Sister Martha with a tinge of irritation in her voice. I quickly decided I didn't like Larry. When he disappeared, Sister Martha told us how to lock the building and gave us the security code to open the gate. She then thanked us again for coming, presented us with a check, a very generous figure, we thought, for such an intangible service, and said she'd leave us to our work. She opened her handbag and was fishing for her car keys when her cell phone rang. She plucked it from her purse, flipped it open. Yeah, it was that long ago. She flipped it open and answered. "Yes, dear. How are you doing?" She obviously knew the caller, and after a moment of silence, Sister Martha sat down and sighed. "Oh dear, when? Is anyone with you?" She listened silently for a couple of minutes before saying, "We're all praying for you, dear. Try to get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow." She flipped the phone shut and glared blankly at Mark and me. That was Sister Catherine's mother. Her husband, Catherine's father, was devastated by her death. He collapsed and died about a half an hour ago. For an uncomfortably long moment, it seemed that Sister Martha was going to say something more. She didn't. She picked up her purse and keys. "I'll let you get started now. Tomorrow we'll pick up part 5, the exorcism itself." I hope you're enjoying these morning sessions. I really am. Thank you so much for allowing me to come into your homes every morning with my crazy books. I really appreciate it. Until tomorrow, be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.